Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Friday Insiders DFS NFL show. I'm here with Dan Gaspar from FantasyInsiders.com and Evan Silva from RotoWorld.com. You can check out all of his content there. He writes the weekly matchups piece, which is basically that's the number one article that you need to read before you set your lineups. It's even more important than mine, and I mean, anyone who knows me knows how big of a statement that is because it's so rare that I'll put anyone else's content or ideas over mine. But
This is true.
I really don't read hardly anyone's content, but I definitely read Evan's every week. How'd your FanDuel week go last week, Evan? Did you make some dollars?
I mean, I play all tournaments, so I rack up a lot of losses, you know.
I know how that goes.
I tread water though, and I consider that almost like a win when I just get my money back, you know.
You're just buying your time until you have the big week.
Right. And now that we're like 6 weeks into the season, we've seen every team play 5 or 6 games. I mean, this is when I started getting hot last year. I had like one win in week 1, which was just fluky, but then we start to get a lot of information, and it's almost like an algorithm that gets stronger and stronger and stronger as we move forward, and the people that are paying attention are going to be at an advantage because they've been following this stuff all year. I mean, I think that's true in season-long leagues as well as in DFS. And this is when I started cranking out, like I got a bunch of wins. So
Dude, I'm
hoping for that again.
I'm just bad at seasonal football.
That's because you don't set your lineups, Davis.
No, like the couple
You're leaving
leagues.
guys on buys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I got a lot going on, man. EPL lineups got to be set. You know, like I got to wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning to make sure that Alexis Sanchez is in. Well, I don't even know what team he plays for right now, but it's a real thing. It's a struggle out here. All right, let's just get in. Let's start talking about daily fantasy. So I'm working on lineups right now, and the first question I want to throw out to you guys is Justin Forsett versus Lamar Miller. I'll let Dan go first, and I'll let Evan give his take.
I think on FanDuel, it's Forsett just as far as pricing goes. I don't have a problem going both of them in your lineups if you kind of want someone to save a little money at your running back position. I told Davis this. I mean, I don't feel comfortable. I never feel comfortable with rostering a running back that is in any sort of committee at all, even if we've had a little bit of track record to show that Forsett's going to get around 15 touches a game. It's still kind of uneasy rostering him, but I told Davis this yesterday. I spent literally 2 hours trying to tweak a roster with Aaron Rodgers lineup and get Forsett out of it and like it, and I couldn't do it.
On FanDuel, it is not possible. Really, like Forsett's going to be dumb because there's no other than him. There's no like injury running back who's filling in for a week like that you can go on. Evan, do you think that this is with Moreno out of the picture? Do you think this is pretty firmly Lamar Miller's job?
Oh, absolutely.
You don't think Hobo with a shotgun is going to break in?
If you look how they've utilized Lamar Miller, though, it's almost like they have a cap on his weekly carries. They will not give him more than 15 in a given week. It doesn't matter how well he's running. It doesn't matter about game flow. I mean, the same is sort of true of Justin Forsett. I mean, we're not going to see him go out and just handle 25 carries.
Yeah, they're both capped for sure.
But, yeah, I mean, the running scheme is so friendly for Justin Forsett. The matchup is great. It's a home game. You know, it's a game where at very worst it'll be a close game. You know, and it could also be a blowout win for Baltimore. Which that actually might be a concern for Forsett.
Yeah, I actually think a blowout is not really what you want with Forsett at all, because last week in a blowout to sort of, I mean, no one was really using Forsett last week, or maybe they were. He wasn't on my radar. But for him, he had to have a 52-yard run, and that accounted for like 60% of his yardage, basically. And I think he only got to 16 carries in that game. They're not using Justin Forsett to salt the clock, though. Like that's not really what they're doing. I do think with Moreno out, I really like Miller against this Chicago defense because they are a little bit more susceptible to the run than they are to the pass with Kyle Fuller playing so well. Like, in my opinion, Mike Wallace is definitely at a disadvantage against Kyle Fuller, even though he's a rookie, because he's been playing so well. Fuller's one of those cornerbacks who's not necessarily going to completely eliminate a wide receiver from the game, but he's so good in the air with his hands that he has the ability to, like, Mike Wallace is weak at the catch point. So I don't think that's a scenario where the Dolphins coaching staff is going to game plan. And I mean, I wish they would give Daniel Thomas's carries to Damian Williams, but I also don't think that's going to happen. So I really like Lamar Miller this week, and from a lot of the content I've read, I kind of feel like I'm alone on him.
It's worth noting, Davis, that last week Damian Williams was active over Daniel Thomas. Daniel Thomas was a healthy scratch.
That's awesome to me.
Williams also plays on special teams, so it's really hard to say whether that was just because Moreno was back, etc. I tend to believe that Daniel Thomas will be the number 2 back, but it's still worth considering.
And I mean, we saw that. We sort of saw that in reverse with Denver the last 2 weeks, right? Because C.J. Anderson wasn't active because he wouldn't play on special teams, and then he was active. But then I think the coaches sort of realized that C.J. Anderson is a non-entity, and therefore they were giving carries to Juwan Thompson, who's much better. But yeah, that's probably. Oh, Juwan Thompson is better than C.J. Anderson.
They're like about the same.
You're being ridiculous, Evan.
Davis, what are you talking about, dude?
Juwan Thompson's good. IMO. Okay, let's. I think a question that a lot of people are wrestling with though is whether or not to pay up for Aaron Rodgers this week, and it's sort of interesting because Jordy Nelson has the matchup that you want against Kaysen, so he's definitely Jordy Nelson is, I think, probably going to be my most owned player this weekend. But how do you feel about paying up for Rodgers this weekend, Evan?
Oh, I'm fine with it, and if you're in a tournament, stacking him with Devontae Adams. Both of those corners for Carolina are toast, man. I mean, Melvin White, they already tried benching him. Then they had to bring him back. Gives up a ton of TDs. Same with Kaysen. I think he's allowed a touchdown in 4 straight games.
He has the worst coverage rating by Pro Football Focus, and it's not even particularly close. He's 3 points worse than than Marcus Cooper.
Right. So every single guy for the Packers has a great matchup, on down to fat, sluggish, terrible Eddie Lacy. So all the guys. I mean,
you running out Fat Eddie this weekend?
I'm not. I mean, he doesn't get enough work. He doesn't get enough work.
He's legitimately splitting snaps with Starks now.
Yeah.
All right, resident Packers fan. How do you feel about using Jordy and Devontae in the same lineup? Because it was something that I tossed out to you last night, and you weren't as keen on it as I was. But I just see, I see his price point on FanDuel as being the primary reason to play him because there's not very many wide receivers underneath 6K that I like on FanDuel.
It's not something that I would run in a cash game lineup. I actually have that combo in. I think I'm going to run that combo in my main DraftKings GPP lineup, where I have Rodgers, Jordy, and Devontae. Devontae's 3,900 over there, which is a good price. I don't think I'll run anything like that in a cash game lineup on FanDuel. I think Devontae Adams obviously has a good matchup. It looks like I don't know. I don't know if I didn't see an update today, but I'm guessing Boykin's going to sit. I think he's questionable at this point. But you do want to keep an eye on that. I think Adams has overtaken him anyways, but anytime you have that opportunity for Adams to lose snaps, you got to keep an eye out on that. I like Justin Hunter a lot, kind of in that same price point.
Yeah, you do.
I know. I'm on Davis Maddox boy this week. Justin Hunter going up against Breland. I think he's got a really good matchup. I like him over Devontae. Yeah. So I like him at that price point. Another guy you can pivot to that I know Davis hates, and we'll probably talk about 15 minutes about him. I think I would take Colston over Devontae Adams. If Jimmy Graham's out, which you got to keep a close eye on because it's looking more likely that he's actually going to play now. But I like Colston over Adams.
He's not going to play. Jimmy Graham's not going to play.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. All right. So this is actually, I think this is probably a question that we should dedicate some real time to because I feel like Marcus Colston is someone that a lot of guys are going to look at initially and maybe end up using in cash just as a volume play. Evan, what do you think about Marcus Colston this week for 5,500 on FanDuel?
I mean, that's a real nice price for him. I think he's solid.
Yeah, it definitely is.
I think that I kind of like Cooks a little bit better.
That's who I wrote up.
Yeah. I mean, he's got 12 more targets than Colston on the season, and he also has 5 rushing attempts. I mean, I think he's a high 4 guy, and I mean, I think they're both good plays. How much Cooks is a little bit more.
66, I think.
Yeah, see, he's significantly.
He's
more
1,100 more.
Yeah, so that's significant.
But
see, that's the thing. Colston's price range, you're looking at guys like Devontae Adams, Justin Hunter, kind of are around him in price range. Whereas Cooks, you're looking at Golden Tate. I like Kelvin Benjamin a lot this week. It looks like Shields going to be out. Tremont Williams might be out. So I think if you're just looking at it from that perspective, as far as pivot plays in that price range, I think Colston's the better choice out of guys in his price range than Cooks is in guys in his price range.
I feel like a lot of people are going to start Colston.
I do too, and so there's a couple of reasons why I know that it's an attractive price point, and I know that the volume is going to be there, but there are a couple of reasons that I don't want to use him at all. So even with Jimmy Graham playing, Brandin Cooks has 41 targets, Marcus Colston has 29. Marcus Colston's catch rate for the year is 52%, Brandin Cooks is 78%, and it's really easy to see why. Cooks runs to open spaces in the field. Those are the routes that he runs. He's not running, he's not, fighting defenders in the air for the ball. He's not ever close, and he's quick enough in short spaces to sort of always be open, at least in the flats, whereas Colston is going to have to go up against all of the, every single Detroit cornerback and safety has a positive pass coverage grade from Pro Football Focus, and the Lions are the best defense in football. And, I know he's the number 1 wide receiver, and I know that the Saints are going to have to throw, but couldn't you see Colston having 12 targets and 3 receptions for 40 yards? That is legitimately in his... I know that's extreme, but that is completely in his range of outcomes, especially given how bad he's been. Right now, he's 48th in Football Outsiders defensive yards above replacement, and that's, way, way below his career norm of where he's been in that offense. So a lot of that would suggest to me that he's not the player that he's been, and I think it's probably due to the plantar fascia injury that has basically sapped a ton of his explosiveness. So I'm not saying it's a bad play, but I'm just I wouldn't use him in my lineups because the only reason we're even talking about these wide receivers is, one, this sort of mythic image of Drew Brees, this mythic image that we have of Drew Brees, and he has not been that player this year, and then because Graham is out. But I would much rather play Cooks just because I think he's a really safe bet for 8 catches for 60 yards.
I think that's fair. Evan can correct me if I'm wrong, but Colston sees the majority of his snaps in the slot. So, I mean, it's obviously a tough matchup, but if you're going individually wise or who he's going to actually match up against on defense, he will have the best matchup possible out of the quarterbacks that he can face. He'll be going up against Gore, who he has a pretty neutral rating according to Pro Football Focus. So the matchup's not great, but individually it is the best matchup that he could draw.
Yeah, this is also one thing to note, and Davis touched on it, is that the Lions do have the best defense in football, and that feels weird to say, but they legitimately are. And I mean that's a concern for all these guys.
Yeah, and the Saints are going to throw because their defense isn't very good. Although the Lions' offense without Calvin and with their backs hurt and rotating is not particularly good either. This could end up being one of those games that you watch and you're just pulling your hair out the entire time because it's just so awful and boring. Like
that Green Bay Detroit game in Week 2.
Exactly, because that's what Detroit is doing to teams this year. They're just suffocating. They're not giving anyone any room. And Jordy Nelson was not very effective against this defense, and Jordy Nelson is a great player. I know the value is good, but if you're getting 6 points on FanDuel, you just I don't know. To me, it's not the sort of play I would ever make. I'm the idiot who played Andre Holmes for $4,700 and got lucky last weekend. Pretty much is I would much rather pay $400 more for Justin Hunter. Pretty much.
Someone asked in chat if Brees is a good contrarian play, and he's going to be my second highest owned guy for my Millie Maker lineups on DraftKings, just because I do think his own percentage is going to be low. So I think it's an opportunity to take a gamble on him on a week where he's going to be at an all-time low as far as own percentage goes.
And by the way, Davis, you kind of posed the question: why have the Saints kind of sucked offensively? One thing that has been totally missing from their offense is the deep ball. I mean, you remember when they were clicking on all cylinders? They would have two guys at all times who could run, who could just run clear out routes. Like
Stills
DeVary Henderson or Devery Henderson back in the day, and Robert Meacham would just run clear out stuff, and they would they would cook.
Yeah,
and they don't have anything going deep down the field anymore. I mean, Kenny Stills was hurt for all preseason, hasn't gotten it going at all. Joe Morgan has been active and inactive.
Why won't they?
That's been a big missing element. I mean, because Nick Toon was only good at the combine and good nowhere else.
I want to hear Coach Evan here. You have a bye week with the Saints. What are you doing? What are you focusing on offensively this week? Is it sending guys downfield?
I mean, that has been missing from their offense, and I mean, that's tough. I mean, right now the Detroit back end should be exploitable. I mean, you've got James Hedigbo as a safety. You got Rasheem Mathis, who's like 35 years old. You theoretically should be able to exploit those guys, but we see it a lot. I mean, when defenses are so good in the front seven, they can mask deficiencies in the back. Exploiting those problems is those weaknesses is a lot easier said than done. And now the Saints don't have their key guy. They don't have, I don't think that Jimmy Graham is going to play. I'm kind of with Davis. I think that this is kind of a trap game. I noticed that it opened at 51.5 points, and it's already down to like 49. I don't know if that's just because people betting the under, but I was shocked when it opened at 51.5. I mean, I don't know how do you attack the best defense in football?
I don't know. I would think that the only card that they really haven't played this year is to let Cooks do what he did in college, which was excel down the field. But they haven't let him do that yet. So that would be I'm sort of speculating there, but I feel like that's the one card that they could play that the Lions might not be ready for and Dink just mentioned in chat the same thing, that they won't let him run farther than 10 yards down the field when if you look at his college stats and watched him play in college, that was why he was so good, is because he could beat corners down the field. He was just better down there.
The defense is similar to Carolina's last year. I mean, you're dominant on the interior. You got Ansa. I mean, he's a stud coming off the edge. I mean, it's you should be able to attack their back four, but they don't let you. Go ahead, David. Sorry.
Yeah. So the next guy I wanted to talk about is, I actually feel like, sort of as I've been constructing lineups, Cam Newton is a guy that I am ending up on a lot, just because it's sort of a way to capture if Rodgers has a good game, because if Rodgers has a good game, that means that Cam is going to be forced to run, forced to throw the ball down the field. It's just a good way to play off that, and it's a way to, you can get Jordy Nelson in your lineup, and those elements work together. Like if Jordy Nelson is having a huge game, chances are that Cam is going to be forced to at least try and make things happen on offense. So a couple things are concerning about that. One, he did run last week, but he is still sort of suffering from that ankle injury. And two, we don't know for sure if Tramon Williams and Sam Shields are going to be out.
Shields is out.
Shields is out? Okay, cool.
And he plays on the side that Benjamin most usually plays.
Yeah, and that's another thing also, is that Benjamin has not been cleared yet, I don't believe. Is that correct, Evan?
Yes.
So if Benjamin doesn't play, I actually don't think Cam Newton is he's throwing to complete nobodies. But if Benjamin is active, I sort of feel like Cam becomes the best quarterback value in terms of raw point potential and dollars per point. What are you thinking about Cam this week, Evan?
I mean, I love him as like a tournament play. I don't think I'd play him in cash, especially with the uncertainty about Benjamin. I mean, we will know Sunday whether or not he's active, so that will make that an easier decision. But I wouldn't. I probably wouldn't play him in a cash game. I mean, the Packers also have played really good pass defense on the year. That usually doesn't worry me with Cam Newton, but I would rather play him in a tournament than in a cash game.
Dan?
I don't know if I have any problem running him out in cash. I think Tremont Williams is leaning towards sitting this one out too, so that would obviously help in coverage with both the top corners out. An interesting question I would have, and I'd lean Cam Newton on it, would be, I know a lot of people are running Kaepernick out. Would you rather have Cam or Cap?
Iupati's going to be out this week. I just saw on Twitter not that long ago. So the struggle is getting very real in San Francisco right now, and Denver's defense is also pretty good and not
really good. It's really good,
and they're not missing any of their top players. Ware's in there, Talib's in there. Like that defense is very good. So
the Broncos, if you look at their stats, they've given up the 16th most passing yards, but that's deceptive as to how really good they really are. I mean, they're top 6 in like all the other peripheral stats. Yards per attempt allowed, completion percentage allowed, quarterback rating against. I think they're top 6 in sacks per game. I mean, they've got Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware, man. I think that this is there's no way I would use Colin Kaepernick. I wouldn't even start him in a season-long league.
Yeah, I'm on that same.
Bring up the follower fade article because I believe.
Oh, I think Dan just froze. No, he's back.
What were you saying, Dan?
Never mind. I wanted to look up our follower fade article because I thought Kaepernick was fairly highly owned on FanDuel this week, but he didn't come across. It looks like a lot of people are also on Joe Flacco, kind of going up against that matchup and coming off a big week.
That's ridiculous.
Him and Rodgers, according to the article, him and Rodgers were the only guys consistently above 10% owned.
That's ridiculous to me. I don't know. I know he threw 5 touchdowns last week, but he's still Joe Flacco. Am I being ridiculous, Evan?
No. Yeah. I mean, I would start him in a season long for sure, but I wouldn't use him in daily when you have other guys to pick. How about Carson Palmer? Stack him with Floyd.
Yep, do it. Maybe not for cash, but I also think Michael Floyd. I would rather play Michael Floyd for 6,400 on FanDuel than Golden Tate for 6,700, even considering the matchup. I know a lot of people Golden Tate is. If Golden Tate has a huge game this weekend, it's gonna hurt me because I'm not gonna have him in that many spots. I don't.
Oh, really? Why?
Evan, man, we've been over this, dude. I think that
he doesn't like him as a number one.
I think he's Ron Weasley. I think he's awesome when Harry Potter's around, and then when Harry leaves, he's not as great.
He was great in the 2 games before that. But you're saying that's because Calvin was outside drawing attention? Or what?
Yeah, I just think as a number 1 option, he leaves a little bit wanting. Basically,
I think he just dropped two passes last week and had a bad game.
Do you know who Golden Tate is, Evan? Golden Tate is who people think Eric Decker is. People who don't realize how good Eric Decker is. That's who he fits that definition of sort of miscast as a wide receiver 1, but a very good second wide receiver and a good offense.
Right, but now he's going against a bad defense where he will probably get double-digit targets.
But I mean, even bad defenses can scheme for. I mean, realistically, with Ebron and Calvin out and Bush sort of hurting a little bit, who are you scheming for? You're scheming for Golden Tate. I could definitely be wrong on this.
I don't know. Are the Saints going to scheme to take Golden Tate away?
But that's what I'm saying. That's the situation where we're in. Golden Tate is their best skill position player right now.
But you seem sure that they would scheme to take away Golden Tate.
I feel like if I was a defensive coach, I wouldn't be so much worried about a hobbled Reggie Bush or a Joeek Bell even, who is just sort of a replacement level runner in the NFL. Golden Tate is the only one. I'm not saying Golden Tate is bad. He's a very good NFL wide receiver. I just feel like as a number 1, he's a little bit miscast. But the opportunity is going to be there. I'm just personally going with Floyd instead because I think that Floyd is much better, and I feel like his chance of making explosive plays is higher.
I like them both. I would start them both.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. So, real quick on Cam. Another thing that just before we move on, a thing that I also like about Cam this week is Dom Capers' historical inability to scheme for read option quarterbacks. He just doesn't get his guys prepared for them at all.
Yep.
So I feel like there's some really easy rushing yards for Cam in this game.
Oh my gosh! Just Dink saying in chat that the Jets acquired Percy Harvin.
Wait, seriously?
What?
What?
That's what
Glazer
Glazer reported it. Unless it's a fake Glazer. No,
nope,
that's
the
real Glazer.
That is the real Glazer. That is a trade that a bad football team makes. That is awful.
That is hilarious.
Dude, I'm not even looking at chat right now. Guarantee Gindy is going off about Curse right now.
Curse is gonna be awesome now.
Yeah. Evan, so let's break this down a little bit. So the Seahawks just got rid of one of the worst contracts in the NFL. Definitely. That just happened.
Yeah.
For a conditional pick. That is huge, man. Oh. So are there...
I don't know, man. I still sort of don't even believe it.
Dude, Glazer just reported it.
Dink said exactly my feelings in chat, and that would be they got Jeremy Curley 2.0.
Yep.
So now they have two Jeremy Curleys.
Oh, dude, Curse or Gindy is getting to his. It's happening right now. Well, I mean, here's the thing: the Seahawks are one of the worst organizations in football in terms of identifying wide receiver talent. They spent real draft capital on Paul Richardson and Kevin Norwood, who were both non-prospects for the most part. They signed Harvin to that terrible contract. Their number one wide receiver is Jermaine Kearse, who would be fine as a number 3 on a good team. So I'm honestly, if they were a good team, they would have tried to get Decker back in return. Is what a smart NFL team would have done. Not that player trades are easy to work in the NFL with cap, but
so what does this mean? All of Marshawn Lynch?
This is not a move that like John Idzik would make. I'm shocked.
Do you think this came from ownership? Like Seattle's been trying to move him for a while, and the Jets heard about it, and the ownership it's like
maybe that's crazy. I can't believe it.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious. Like everyone, like one of my favorite things about the NFL is that you're not allowed to criticize teams that have been successful, but no objective observer would say that the Seattle wide receivers are any good. I don't know. And there's also been like a 4 or 5 year rumor that Percy Harvin's just a dick, that he's just like a straight malcontent and is not good in the locker room at all. Do you think there's any truth to that, Evan?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think this is all the Marshawn Lynch this weekend though? Against the Seattle front or St. Louis front?
Yeah, I mean, the last time that there was a game last year against the Rams where Darrell Bevel, the Seahawks play caller, gave Marshawn Lynch 8 carries. I think it was a Monday night game.
Yeah, it was horrible.
It was definitely a primetime game. And it was like, what are you doing? And they almost lost. I mean, it was a 14-9 game. But Darrell Bevel came back the next week and gave Marshawn Lynch 25 touches. I don't think there's any way. I mean, they're going to come back and feed Marshawn the rock. They got dominated in time of possession by Dallas. That was embarrassing. They got to come back and feed it to Marshawn.
It wasn't embarrassing. It was awesome, is what it was.
I mean, are you really a fan of a team?
Yeah.
Davis?
Yeah, dude. I really am. Like I've been a self-loathing Dallas fan for so long because the decision making inside the organization is impossible to support, but they're finally playing how they should have been playing for the last 5 years. When they throw the ball, it's to Dez Bryant or it's deep to Terrence Williams, and then they just use DeMarco Murray, who's the best running back in the league. It's awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah. I'm definitely working Lynch into some Millie Maker teams now because to me this reads like because there was a bunch of stuff that came out after the game last week, and everyone was pissed, and they were talking about how they got away from who they were, and there's all that crap that I don't really listen to. But this, to me, seems like Darrell Bevel realizes that the way in which what the GM of the Seahawks has given him does not work to the game plan that they drew up last week, and that they need to feed Marshawn Lynch. All right, cool. Who do you
I
want
dig
to talk?
that narrative.
Yeah, no, that's not even a narrative. I'm just saying how it reads to me. Who do you want to talk about, Dan? These are sort of all the players I've been curious about.
Wait. So you think that it's the Seahawks GM sending a message to the play caller, basically?
No. I think that first of all, I think that the Seahawks GM realized that Percy Harvin is not worth the money that they had, basically. Like, Percy Harvin is not good enough at football to make an like, he's not a difference maker. Like, maybe he is, like, once a game.
If he scores those 3 TDs against Washington, none of them get canceled out by penalty, are we talking about him differently?
I wouldn't be. I'm sure most of fantasy Twitter would be.
Okay.
But I've always thought Percy Harvin's like Danny Amendola. He's had some great fantasy stretches and is therefore incredibly overrated. But in terms of real NFL impact, is barely a replacement level player. Like, that's just I don't know. That's just always how I viewed it. Is that too hot of a take, Evan?
Yeah.
That's too out of a take? Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Like,
I mean, Tuttle, you really think he's a souped-up curly?
Yeah.
I mean, some of it's tongue-in-cheek, but
make Dan take a stance right now.
I mean, I'm going to take a middle stance. No, I mean,
I agree that he's not as good as you remember when people were talking about him in the MVP conversation a couple of years.
Yeah, just ridiculous.
Right. So people would have. I mean, that in his 3rd NFL season or whatever, that would have put him like on a Hall of Fame track if he would have been the MVP as a 3rd-year player or whatever. At age 24 or 23 or whatever he was at that time. I mean, I would say that the answer is probably in the middle. And I know you don't like in the middle, Davis.
No, listen. If it's in the middle, as long as it's an opinion, I'm fine with it. I'm just not cool with no stance at all.
Okay, we're not even talking about like fantasy at this point.
Yeah. Well, people are interested in this. This is all anyone's talking about on Twitter or anything, so it's fine. But the only daily fantasy, like, this doesn't make Russell Wilson any worse from a daily fantasy perspective.
No.
Like, I actually think it might help him a little bit because they're not wasting time trying to get him screens or jet sweeps that he hasn't been effective on. And a lot of it is because this Seahawks O-line is not great right now. Max Unger is going to miss this game. Russell Okung is playing with a torn labrum. I also think that could partially explain why they went away from Marshawn Lynch last week, is just all the struggles with the offensive line. Is that sort of factoring into your decision of playing Lynch this week, Dan?
I liked Lynch before this trade. Yeah, they've had some injuries on the line. I kind of like some of its narrative, but I kind of like what's been alluded to a lot this week, and kind of what Evan was talking about or hinting at before, as far as what's happened previously when Marshawn Lynch hasn't been fed the ball. They pretty much just come right back and almost overcompensate for their shortcomings the week before. So I kind of liked him going in before this trade anyways. I don't think the trade really has much of an effect on it, but I think Lynch is a good option regardless.
Curse was already playing almost 100% of the Seahawks snaps. But this should just mean that he gets the ball more. And they can move Baldwin back to the slot, which really is his position. I mean, he hasn't been like Golden Tate was on the outside. He's been playing that X position in their offense. And he's been kind of stretched in that role. So he will move back to the slot. I got to think about who will be their next guy, Lockett? Or would they start playing Richardson?
They're not going to start playing Richardson, dude.
I think it would be Lockett.
Yeah. Do you know that Richardson weighs less than a baby gazelle? He weighed in at the combine at 163 pounds.
Oh, they do throw the ball to Brian Walters sometimes. Seattle.
Yeah.
All the Luke Wilson this week is basically what we're saying here.
Hold on.
He's questionable with a groin injury.
Oh, is he really? Because I was going to say that actually might be a thing. JJ JJ somewhere is going, oh my God, Luke Wilson is going to kill the stream so good.
Yeah, Luke
For all
Wilson's
the
game
things
time
we've
decision.
gotten right recently, Luke Wilson is definitely something that we've gotten wrong.
Yeah, definitely. All right, cool. Let's talk about some of these tight ends, because this is a position I have no read on this week. I know that Patrick Willis is not going to play in this game, and that Borland and Will Hoyt are going to be the middle linebackers for San Francisco. But I still don't think I want to play Julius Thomas. Is that sort of the right take, Evan?
I mean, I thought about playing Julius Thomas, but I'm all aboard Kelce.
Oh snap!
I've been trying to not publicly be so much about Kelce, but yeah, talk about him this week.
Yeah, and coming off the bye, that was a good opportunity for them to move his snap percentage from 60% to about 75%. And I mean, he already leads the team in targets, so that they know that he's a baller.
Yeah, but does Andy
does
Andy Reid care though?
I mean, I don't even care. Keep him in the 60% range. He should still do really well against San Diego, who, by the way, is 30th in fantasy points allowed to tight ends. But go look at the tight ends they faced. I mean, they faced nobody. The best tight end that they faced is, I think, Jace Amaro so far.
Oh, Jace is pretty sexy though. People are giving.
I mean, they faced like Michael Rivera. They faced, I think, Scott Chandler.
JJ's favorite. Dude, JJ loves Scott Chandler. Scott Chandler has a living the stream tattoo.
I know.
Yeah. All right, Dan. Talk about your boy, the ever exceedingly far too handsome Jordan Cameron.
It's for me. It's between. Well, you guys are gonna try to get me to play Kelce this week, which might happen.
He is a good play.
It's a week where it's a tough tight end week. Like everyone's gonna flock to Jordan Reed on FanDuel, which I think it's obviously a good play. For me, it's really between Jordan Reed or Jordan Cameron. I'm leading Cameron to kind of just differentiate myself a little bit because I think both are extremely good options. Both have similar upside. So I'm leading Cameron just kind of as a differentiation. I think Kelce's actually even better if you kind of want to go for a guy that's even lower owned. Kelce's obviously going to be that guy, and I think there are reasons to play him.
How would he be low owned?
People see San Diego and think they don't look into the schedule that San Diego's faced, and they see that, like you pointed out, they're 30th in points allowed to a tight end. Okay. They view San Diego as a tough defense for tight ends. Football Outsiders, I think, has San Diego ranked as 19th against the tight end, so they're kind of on board with what you're saying. But I could be wrong, but my read of it is that Kelce's not going to be very highly owned. It's going to be a lot of Jordan Reed, and then a decent amount of Jordan Cameron.
Yeah, so this is something that I think is pretty interesting in terms of Kelce. Just if you're bored this week, go look up the 40 times of the San Diego linebackers, and then go compare it to Kelce. Just if you feel like convincing yourself to play Travis Kelce, he will eat them like they are antelopes, and he is a mighty lion hunting in the savannah. I had to reappropriate the lion eating gazelle line because that was originally for Ladarius Green, but Mike McCoy has decided that Green just scores too fast. If he was going to play Green every snap, he would score way too often, and that's not what they want to do. That is a concern playing Kelce, and that's also a concern playing Jamal Charles. I know that price tag for Charles on DraftKings is just it's outrageous that he's 6,700 on DraftKings. But if San Diego has their way, they'll run 8 drives all game and have 40 minutes time of possession. And I'm not sure that Kansas City has a good enough defense to offer resistance. What do you think about Charles this week, Evan? Or just the Chiefs' offense in general?
I like Kelce, and in daily, I like Kelce and nobody else.
Yeah.
I want to point out tight end ownership in Thursday night games. From our Follower Fade article. And mind you, this is with last night's game, obviously, where a lot of people were on Gronk, too. So these ownership percentages will obviously spike a little bit as well. In 50-50s, $25 50-50s, Jordan Reed's ownership was right around the 33% range. And in the $25 GPP, he was 17%. So he is far and away going to be the highest owned tight end. Jordan Cameron was next in line. Martellus Bennett showed up at around the low teens, and then those were the highest owned guys.
Yeah. I think all of this is just talking me into playing Kelsey.
Yeah, me too, and I'm hating it.
I looked at all the tight ends, and the only one I wanted was Kelsey.
I mean, I always want Kelsey. He lives inside my heart.
I mean, I love the idea of Cameron, but Brian Hoyer might only throw 20 times.
And that's a weird thing to me about Dan liking him, is that Dan is like always like the volume guy. Like he wants to take a lot of skill out of it, and he just wants it to be pure guaranteed touches. But the team threw the ball 17 times last week. I will say this though: the fact that he's surrounded by a bunch of midgets does increase his touchdown percentage like almost every week, because Andrew Hawkins and Emmanuel Sanders are going to have 200 combined catches this year, and neither's going to score a touchdown. But he had 5 targets last week. He had a good game, but it's a very un-Dan-like play to me.
I mean, if you're looking at, they only threw 18 times, which is obviously a concern. But if you look at the market share, he had 5 of those targets, which obviously isn't great. I mean, the only tight end I think that you can guarantee you're going to get more targets from is Jordan Reed this week.
Julius will get 8 targets. They just might not be. He might not be.
His targets aren't very good, which is which is amazing considering the touchdown clip that he's at right now.
In seasonal leagues, you should trade Julius Thomas.
This is one thing that we got wrong, Davis, about Julius Thomas versus Emmanuel Sanders. At least I did. I won't call out what you got wrong. I got it wrong. Is that I thought Julius Thomas would have more targets, than Emmanuel Sanders, basically.
I didn't. I probably would have. Said the same thing, because I think.
But Emmanuel Sanders is blowing him away in targets. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's move forward a little bit. Let's talk about Le'Veon on Monday night.
I'm in. He's been so consistent. JJ said this on the show yesterday. His worst finish in PPR scoring has been RB16. People talk about him like he's been a disappointment this year, but any sort of disappointment talk's not really grounded in reality. It's just he hasn't scored yet. But I love him in this matchup. Houston has the 29th ranked rushing defense by adjusted DVOA by Football Outsiders, so I can't find a reason not to play him this week.
Tuttle, Oliver.
I'm not touching it. There's great argument for it, and I think he's a great play. I can't do it.
What's negative about it?
But I'd take Ben Tate, Lamar Miller. I'd even take Alfred Morris in that same price range on FanDuel over him. Andre Ellington at 7,100. He's just not at a price point anymore where I want him. He's obviously a good play. Chiefs are allowing the most yards per carry in the league. I'm not sold on him as a skilled guy. He's obviously going to get a ton of volume again, but I'm not on him this week.
That's interesting. I mean, you didn't really have a good reason there.
I didn't. I don't. I really don't. I just don't. I don't think he's a good player. Other than that,
interesting. Okay.
It's going to be a volume play, so I don't hate anybody that's going to do it.
Davis, do you think he's a good player?
Do I think who is a good player?
Brandon Oliver.
I think he is a replacement level NFL running back who has a ton of volume right now. Which is, I would say 70% of NFL starting running backs are replacement level guys. Like, that's just sort of how I think the position has evolved. It's interesting to me that Dan is sort of on Ben Tate, because Terrence West is going to be active this week after being a healthy and active last week. And I mean, we know this team is they're going to try and run the ball that's just what they're going to do. That's what the whole philosophy is. But I feel like that does introduce a small amount of risk.
I think the risk is that's going to cut into Crowell, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's going to hurt Crowell. I agree.
Tate's fine. Tate was 2 weeks ago. West was active, was he not?
Yeah,
and Tate's still. And
They
Tate's
split
still
like almost evenly.
Yeah, and Tate's still got 22 touches. I mean, you're not worried about Tate's touches, I don't think, with West active. It makes Crowell unplayable because I thought he was actually playable as a GPP option on DraftKings, and I wrote him up that way. But I don't think he's playable anymore with West active because you just don't know how they're going to distribute then.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. I think there are a lot of really interesting mid-range running backs this week. But I just like, and another thing with me is I'm never gonna go out of my way to play a running back who can't and won't catch passes, and Ben Tate doesn't really like give me Andre Ellington over Ben Tate this week. Do you agree with that, Evan?
Nah.
Okay.
Andre Ellington isn't a touchdown scorer. I don't like that.
No, he's not.
So
I really like Alf. I really like Alf Tuttle.
I want you to kind of rank those guys because you like Brandon Oliver this week. So there's we have Brandon Oliver, Ben Tate, Andre Ellington, and Alfred Morris, kind of right in that same range on FanDuel.
You guys are down on his talent. I understand that, but
I'm not down on him.
He's got plenty of talent to be extremely productive, and we've seen that already in small sample sizes. I think he will continue to be very, very productive. The Chiefs suck on run D. I mean, they don't have either of their starting inside linebackers.
Don't do this to me, Evan. You were really talking me into Brandon Oliver right now.
High floor, high upside. I mean, this is real easy for me. Alfred Morris. The Redskins are favored by 5.5 points against the Titans. That's the game flow should squarely work in his favor. I think he gives you 17 carry floor with an upside of like 29 carries.
Damn.
Love Alfred.
I'm like redoing my teams in my head as we speak right now.
Yeah, I have FanDuel open and I'm kind of...
Yeah.
So...
This is the thing, though. This is the thing with Alfred Morris. Okay?
That game goes off
in week 2, I had Justin Hunter on front of the matchups column. In week 3, I had Joey Bell, who did nothing against Green Bay. In week 4, I had Kyrie, who was like 100 total yards just because he busted a long run. In week 5, some other bust. And then in week 6, I asked, is Tom Brady back? And then I expressed skepticism about that. And then he threw 4 touchdown passes. And Alfred Morris is on the front of the matchups column this week. So beware.
My cover boys have killed it, so...
That's good, David. That's great for you.
It's because you go off. It's because you chalk. You chalk the cover boy.
Yeah, I do. I just use the guy that I'm going to use in most of my cash games. So that's been the plan. Hey, I have a question from.
Do you put like Aaron Rodgers on front of as a headline?
It's like Jordy or Demarius, like every week.
Like every week.
It's hard to get that one wrong.
I went Justin Hunter week 1, and then I decided to go much safer from that point on. I have a question from the Peanut Gallery. Is Roddy White dead? Is he just deceased?
He's like total shit.
Yeah.
Through 6 games. I mean, I don't know if that means he's done, but he hasn't looked good. He's battled injuries. He gets no separation. He's dropped passes. My guess is that he'll pick it up, but I mean, in a season-long league, he's like a third receiver option right now. And you're not playing him at all in daily because you can pick from the rest of the entire NFL. You can pick guys that are playing well on the field.
Yeah, I have an interesting question, sort of for people. Is like, just think of your body at age 25, and then think of your body at age 32, and then ask yourself why you continually think that these 32, 33, 34-year-old wide receivers are just going to miraculously. It doesn't make any sense to me why people think that like, one of these years, Larry Fitzgerald is going to become Larry Fitzgerald again. Like, dude, he's so old. Like, I don't know. And maybe that's me because I'm young and I'm I'm a little piece of shit. So that's the way I think. But like, in general, I think when old wide receivers struggle, that's indicative of who they are going forward.
Perhaps. I mean, Marcus Colston struggled for a first half last year, and then he burned it up in the last 8 games and in the playoffs. I mean, he burned up Seattle. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that we got Keenan Allen. He's 22 years old, and he hasn't. I mean, he has had one good game out of 6, from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Davis. I mean, I think that Roddy White will improve. I think that we saw the other night that Andre Johnson still has a little bit left. I mean, he was making catches on Vontae Davis. I don't know. I mean, it just seems like you're saying that to kind of fit a narrative a little bit.
I mean, definitely, like, just in general, the way I've always constructed teams, dynasty, redraft, DFS, I just use younger guys. Derek Carty,
Sure.
who is our main baseball guy, has like age built into his daily projection model for baseball because there's a lot of evidence that shows that after the age of 27, athletic performance declines even on a micro level. So like if you're giving me an option between Julio Jones or Roddy White or Michael Floyd and Larry Fitzgerald, like just in terms of playing probabilities, I'm normally going to play the younger, more athletic guy. Like that's just that.
Absolutely, dude. Yeah. Absolutely. And no one, but that's why in a season long league, I mean, everybody thinks like that though, Davis. That's why some of those older guys can be really good values.
Yeah. So that's the question this week: is Roddy White is 4,100 on DraftKings, which is very low. Are you using him on any of your teams, Dan?
I mean, I'll have a lot of teams, so I'm sure I'll throw him in a couple. But I'd rather have
Justin Hunter.
What Devontae Adams 39. Justin Hunter by far at 3,700. I'd rather have Devontae Adams at 3,900. Marcus Colston I'd rather have at 4,300. So I'll use him in a couple teams, but by no means is he going to be a core play just because he's 4,100.
Yeah. So this is how I want to end the show. I want us to talk about Andre Holmes. I just want to use him because he's been so good to me the times that I've used him. I have him in a bunch of seasonal leagues, have him in a bunch of MFL 10s. He's a guy I've been on since the offseason. Used to be a Cowboy. They cut him for Cole Beasley, which is pretty indicative of the Cowboys' decision-making for the last several years. Do you like him this week against Arizona, Evan?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
I mean, the Raiders came out of the bye with Tony Sperano as their interim coach, running the ball pretty well, actually, quietly. Darren McFadden had his best game since like 2004 at Arkansas.
Yep.
But anyways, back to the old players. You know, what do you think about JJ's fantasy strategy of draft old guys and small wide receivers?
I like you said, people, and this is the way with everything in fantasy football. Is
Combo the old guys with the small wide receivers.
Everyone always overreacts to a trend that they discover. So like, Fred Jackson was a good value. Roddy White so far not looking like a great value, and I mean you could have drafted Eric Decker instead of Andre Johnson 3 rounds later. So like I don't think it's a one size fits all strategy. It's like case by case. But I think in general, if you err on the side of younger players who are slated to have the problem with older versus younger players in the NFL is like playing time. Coaches decide playing time. Like so that's and coaches like older players. They like veterans who can do gritty stuff and who practice well and all of that. So that's something that JJ's capitalized on.
But all right, so back to Holmes. I mean, there's everything to like about him. His quarterback is strong-armed, is targeting the crap out of him. It looks like the way that the Raiders are going to play offense under Tony Sperano is going to be with a vertical passing attack. He's playing 87% of the snaps. He leads them in targets the last 2 weeks. Patrick Peterson sucks. Antonio Cromartie, I don't think he's going to shut anybody down. So, I mean, what do you think? What do you think, Tuttle?
Yeah, I like him. I mean, obviously his price rose quite a bit.
He's too expensive on FanDuel, but he's in that range where the last it seems like all the sleeper wide receivers have been 4,800 on DraftKings. Like Cooks and Benjamin and Sammy Watkins, like all those guys were priced at 4,800, and that's right where Holmes is at, or I think he's 4,600. But yeah, I really like Holmes this week.
Holmes was 4,700 last week when we wrecked him.
Yep. He was in my cash lineups last week.
That's money.
Goat.
I think he's a good play. Yeah, I don't even at his price. I don't think it went too high where he's unplayable. I think he's still a good play.
Dan, can we make a friendly bet right now? The three of us.
Sure.
I take Andre Holmes. You guys take Golden Tate. Just pure fantasy points.
I want Justin Hunter.
You want so Justin Hunter versus Andre Holmes versus Golden Tate.
I'm down with it.
Okay.
Unless Evan wants to switch. Unless Evan doesn't want
do you
Golden Tate.
Do you not want Golden Tate?
Tuttle's really getting me thinking about Justin Hunter now. I mean,
you know how bad Hazlitt sucks at defense.
I know. I hate Charlie Whitehurst so much.
I mean, is he really a downgrade from Jake Locker though? At this point.
I mean, I don't like either of them.
Hunter's my Andre Holmes of this week.
All right. I'm gonna start him up then on a couple tournaments.
Yeah.
No
Why not?
That's what's up. I mean, hey, Justin Hunter's good, dude. He can do stuff. He can make things happen. I don't know. That's my expert analysis. He's very good at the catch point. His hip fluidity allows him to create separation from defenders. Am I doing it right? I gotta text a scout to see if I'm doing it right. I'll ask him if that's how it goes. I'm sort of waiting. I'm sort of biding the clock down until David gets back to his computer.
Well, I want to hear. Someone MX asked about it in chat, and I saw a lot of James Jones on FanDuel. Nah or yeah? Yeah, it's a nah wait for me. Evan, what are your thoughts on James Jones?
I think he will be up against Peterson mostly. I think, based on the Cardinals have mostly left Peterson at left cornerback. They moved around some, but they have mostly left him at left cornerback, and Holmes will run down the other side most of the time. You know, that's not going to happen on every snap, but at all. It might only happen on 54%. But, you know, he's another old guy, right, Davis? Hey, let's make a lineup. I'm gonna throw one in a tourney.
All right.
Okay.
All right. You guys have any cheap QBs besides Palmer? Do you like Palmer at all, Tuttle?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I do.
I like him because their running back isn't a touchdown scorer. So how are they going to score, right? Canton Azaro?
Yeah.
What do you think?
My only hesitation is that he's not. I mean, he's close to 100%. I feel like
threw 44 times last week.
Yeah, he threw a lot. A lot of the routes were short routes. He averaged 5 point mid fives on a per catch basis. So I have some concern that they might be able to just kind of sit on some of the short routes and then limit down the field because his arm strength might not be fully there yet. So I'd like to see that first. But I think he's an awesome GPP play.
All right, should we sack him with Floyd then?
Let's do it. I'm just so you guys know, I'm going to enter this. I'm sitting on a bunch of frequent player points. I'm going to go ahead and enter this in the FanDuel $535 Playboy Mansion, and you guys are going if it wins.
I don't want to go.
You don't want to go?
We can send Kyle Cannon.
Why? Would your girlfriend dump you, Davis?
No, she wouldn't care.
All right, we'll send somebody. We'll figure it out, but I'll send it in with. I'll put it in here with frequent player points. So we're going Palmer and Floyd.
Okay.
Yes.
Stack them up. Hunter, got to put him in.
Got to put him in.
Yep.
Got to play Jordy. I don't care if it's a tournament lineup. You just got to play him.
All right. So we got Jordy. I had to delete the guys because I have to put them in descending order by their salary. Because that's how I roll. My OCD.
Yeah, dude, you're insane. When you told me that the other day, I was like, I have never in my life considered that.
Wait, what was it?
I can't be the only one that does that. So when I'm creating a lineup on FanDuel, like by position, so there's 3 wide receivers, the salary has to be in descending order. So Jordy's got to be first, then Michael Floyd, then Justin Hunter. If it's off, it really bothers me. If it's not in that order.
Interesting.
It's just a little OCD.
Okay. Let's slot in. Let's just get Cairo Santos in there as our kicker. Let's just do that.
And we can go more if we need it. If we have salary at the end.
Are we gonna do Alf Morris?
Let's do Brandon Oliver. Because I'm putting this in the $25. So let's do because I don't have any Oliver yet.
Wait. Total. We need to all be on board with this.
I'm fine with Brandin Oliver because I'm not going to have a whole lot of exposure to him elsewhere.
All right. I mean, he's kind of expensive, so
That's
I don't
fine
have a problem with it.
Yeah.
Well, no, yeah, and then Kelsey.
Yeah, let's do Kelsey.
All right. So, well then we can't play Santos. Let's pencil in Shane Graham for now.
Okay.
A kicker. All right. So we have 69-ish left. Okay.
Wait.
So we can pretty much take who we want at running back now.
Do we have enough to do DeMarco?
We don't. We can do Arian Foster and below. Well, we could technically do Forte, but then we'd have to do a mid-price defense.
Oh, I feel like Le'Veon is going to go nuts.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Let's do Le'Veon.
All right. So then we have 5,400 for a defense then.
Bills D is like my preferred option this week. Bills Ravens are the defenses that I like this week.
Yeah, we didn't talk. We need Evans' take on defense. We didn't get that.
I mean, I like Bills. I'm with you on that. The Vikings O-line is terrible. You know, fits the criteria. They're playing at home.
Yep.
All right, so let's go with them.
Okay, so we have 5,000 at kicker. Then we can upgrade.
Are there any kickers at home in a dome?
We got Brandon McManus. Mile high, baby.
I'll do McManus. That's fine with me.
Get a little exposure to the highest over/under of the week. There we go. So we got Carson Palmer, Le'Veon Bell, Brandon Oliver, Jordy Nelson, Michael Floyd, Justin Hunter, Travis Kelce, Brandon McManus, and the Bills D.
Should we go with Alf Morris instead of Oliver?
Nah, dude. You were pimping up Oliver. We're going Oliver.
Morris is a nice pivot, but I think Brandon Oliver's got to have more upside with the pass catching ability.
Yeah, he could house one from 50.
Yeah, I'm fine with that team. All right, so if we win, it's either going to Evan Silva's either going to the Playboy Mansion, or if he doesn't want to go, then it defects to somebody who is in our chat.
I would definitely go.
There you go. All right. So if this wins, we got a 1 in 50 shot at the 7. Based on, and that's if it fills the whole way.
Cool.
So there we go.
Destroyed it. There you go. There's a winning team. Swag that one out, you guys. Put that in whatever. If you put it in the 25, you're going to tie with me. But
I'm going to have to do more Carson Palmer teams in the Millie Maker now.
Yeah, I'm still sort of I understand your reasoning behind to me, Drew Brees, what you're doing is you're doing the DFS version of a gambler's percentage play where no matter what, you play the home team against an NHL team who is and it's fourth game in 3 nights and who's on a back-to-back, even if it's the Edmonton Oilers. That's what you're doing with Drew Brees. I just because I just don't like that play, really.
I mean, if Vegas agrees this could be a high-scoring over/under, Saints team totals at 23.
Listen,
it's a game theory play. It's a game theory play.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Yeah, I'm fine with admitting that.
Yeah. I will say though, after the Clint Trickett debacle, I don't think Vegas knows anything. Never. I'm just listening to Ben Pritchett for always and forever now. All right. That'll do it for us here at FantasyInsiders.com. This was the Friday Fantasy Insiders NFL Daily Fantasy Show, sponsored by FantasyElite, the fantasy app that you can download on the App Store. They have college football slates posted right now, some of the games tonight. We'll also be doing the college football show tonight at 10 o'clock Central, 11 Eastern, with myself, Benjamin Pritchett at Natural Slugger, and Jordan Case. So make sure to tune into that if you want to get some of Ben's fiery hot takes. And yeah, thank you very much, Evan from Roto World, for joining us. And Dan, thank you as well for ignoring your family for an hour. We always appreciate it. Good luck, everyone. Win some monies.